Hello, and welcome to Beyond Books, where we talk about books from Book of the Month Club and beyond. I'm your host, I'm Renee. Let's get started and talk about two banned books that I have recently read from the library. One is Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe. The other is Flamer by Mike Carato. So, Genderqueer is the number one banned book and challenged book for the year 2022 per the American Library Association website. And it only just came out in 2022. So it already had 151 challenges. So it really hit the ground running, didn't it? I suspect that part of that reason is with the title. It's easy to spot on a shelf or a book list and would quickly become identified as a book that would contain gender issues. So when you look at the banned list in general, though, you do find that those with LGBT plus issues are the ones that stand out as disproportionately prominent on the ban list. So before we go any further, let's talk about that for just a second. Let's talk about the word queer. Now, from the Wikipedia website, I have the following. Queer is an umbrella term for people who are not heterosexual or who are not cisgender. So cisgender simply meaning not identifying with the gender they were assigned at birth. Originally meaning strange or peculiar, queer came to be used pejoratively against the LGBT people in the late 19th century, beginning in the late 1980s, which is when a lot of the activism for the LGBT community really started, late 70s and 80s. And that was when queer activists, such as members of Queer Nation, began to reclaim the word as a deliberately provocative and politically radical alternative to the more assimilationist branches of the LGBT community. So, Flamer, also, I'm going to review these together, is also possibly a standout due to the title, and is currently the number 4 challenged book, and it had 62 challenges. So less than half, actually, of genderqueer to be down at number 4. So what's going on with these books? Well, they're both graphic, young, I'm going to call them young adult novels, but let me give this one caveat. I did find it interesting that Flamer was in the young adult section of the library with the graphic books. And I don't know if you can see that. I'm getting a tremendous glare off of that, but yeah, there you go. Graphic young adult fiction, and then it's under its own title, Flamer. However, when you look at genderqueer, I found this in a different section. We have graphic books, so that was just in the adult section, and it's under the name of the author in that case, because they're filed differently or organized differently within the library. And just to make you aware of possibly what happened in that situation, and I don't know that this is exactly the case, but sometimes books are moved to another section when the challengers are able to cause enough of a disturbance against them that's another way to have an effect on who might get a hold of the books. So I don't know, again, for sure if that's what happened at my local library, but that's how I found these books. So I'm going to be brief as far as the books and the content of the books are concerned. I also looked up a little bit of information about who the target audience would be for these different categories: young adult versus adult. The young adult age group in reading is considered to be 13 to 18. And the main character in Flamer is 14, so that appears to be an appropriate way to assign that book. But the main character in Gender Queer is also in adolescence. I think there's different ages, it goes through a couple of years of time. So it's quite likely the author had that audience in mind when she wrote the story. So also interesting is that Genderqueer specifically states that it is a memoir. So that's what happened to her when she was in those age groups. Whereas with Flamer, it doesn't specifically state that it's a memoir, but it does kind of read that way. So what's the problem? Well, they both have central themes of sexuality, sexual orientation, and identity. The main characters wonder why they have the feelings that they're having, and they wonder at some point, is there something wrong with them? They feel like outsiders among their own peers, and they also experience bullying. So let's talk about this for a second now. I'm going to quote some statistics from the Trevor Project. And in case you're not aware, and I'll put a link below, the Trevor Project is an American nonprofit organization founded in 1998. It's focused on suicide prevention efforts among lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning, or LGBTQ youth. They offer a toll-free number where confidential assistance is provided by trained counselors, and the stated goals of the project are to provide crisis intervention and suicide prevention services for youth, which is defined by that organization as people under 25. So again, we're in the age group. As well as to offer guidance and resources to parents and educators in order to foster safe, accepting, and inclusive environments for all youth at home, schools, and colleges. So there are resources for people who know and love some of the people who would identify in this way, and they can help with those kinds of things. So parents can always be aware if they choose to be that way. So let me then give some of their statistics. Again, this is from the Trevor Project. Suicide is the leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 14. The second leading cause of death, 10 to 14. And the third leading cause of death among 15 to 24-year-olds. Now, this information is pulled from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning young people are at significantly increased risk. So what is their risk? Well, they are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. Now that comes again from some research, and again, I'll have the link for it. The Trevor Project estimates that more than 1 million LGBTQ plus young people, ages 13 to 24, again, in the age group, seriously consider suicide each year in the U.S., and at least one attempts suicide every 45 seconds. The Trevor Project's 2023 U.S. National Survey on the Mental Health of LGBTQ Young People found that 41% of LGBTQ plus young people seriously consider attempting suicide in the past year, and roughly half of transgender and non binary youth. Now, I had to look up some of these terms. I'm no expert. I'm just trying to understand and learn. And non binary, excuse me, non binary and genderqueer are umbrella terms for gender identities that are not solely male or female. So, identities outside of the gender binary. So, not bound to the gender that you are assigned at birth. So, again, I'm not an expert, but here's what I do know. According to these statistics, and they come from various sources, they come from reliable sources, we have a crisis here. So why? Well, it goes on further on the Trevor Project website to say, under the section titled Rejection, Lack of Social Support, and Affirming Spaces, it goes on to say that many LGBTQ plus young people lack access to affirming spaces, with only 30% of LGBTQ plus youth reporting that their home is LGBTQ plus affirming, and just over half saying that their school is affirming. Just over 1 in 3 transgender and non-binary youth found their home to be gender affirming, so that's the minority. And 52% found their schools to be affirming. So schools are actually doing a little bit better. The Trevor Project's research consistently finds that LGBTQ plus youth LGBTQ plus young people report lower rates of attempting suicide when they have access to affirming spaces. So, affirming spaces are very important. And let me ask you this question. We're all readers here. Are books an affirming space? My answer is unequivocally yes, they are. When people see themselves on the pages of a book, they feel affirmed. They feel not so alone. It's a start. And maybe instead of banning the books, we should ban the bullying, the isolation, and the rejection. I'm going to leave with a quote. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. So where did I get this? Well, this is habit number 5 of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It's a book that was written in 1932 and still stands as the #1 most influential business book of the 20th century. The origin of that phrase, seek first to understand, though, likely comes from the prayer of St. Francis, which contains these words. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.